Welcome to St. Michael's Catholic Cemetery. This is home to the Zancraft family plot, which I am standing in. And as you can see, we do have a dramatic headstone here. This is a home of Jacob and Maria Zancraft and 6 of their 9 children. The first known burial is Maria Zancraft right here. She died in 1889. And by that time, the Zancraft Winery is a successful concern. Jacob was a stonemason before coming to the United States, and actually after. He worked as a stonemason. We'll cover his story at the house, but he's one of the many people you hear this about that got here with $5 in his pocket. So he went to work as a stonemason and probably carved a fair amount of headstones. And when I have prowled around there, back before Bob owned it, in the back of that house, I found pieces of uncarved headstones. So he was clearly doing some stone carving on the side at some point. So that might explain the dramatic headstone you see before you, but he did not carve this. We'll get to the guy that did that in a minute. But he was commemorating not only his wife, but also he's creating a monument to the entire family. So you see these wooden crosses. These were placed here by the family, and hopefully will be joined by Tom, maybe even his brother. They placed these things here about 15 years ago, probably, and they really need to be replaced. So that's a potential youth service project for Save the Grace. Save the Grace has relationships with 2 large El Dorado Hills youth service groups. We take them into cemeteries and teach them how to clean headstones. And I want to get them doing a few other things. Maybe replacing these crosses, for starters, would be a good one. The guy that carved this thing was actually J.L. House. And he's well known to Placerville Taphophiles. And House was our home guy, our home headstone carver. He started out being a Folsom headstone carver, but had a bad experience. He got his name slandered. There was a bunch of destruction in a couple of the very historic cemeteries there, and he got blamed for it. And he didn't do it, and he was insulted, and they dropped all the charges because they had no evidence. But anyway, he left, and Folsom's loss became Placerville's gain at that point in time, so we got House. But he's well known for carving plain working man's headstones. This is not a plain working man's headstone. So this is quite likely the culmination of his efforts. It's very dramatic. We'll take a more detailed look at it right now. So there's several inscriptions here that are in German. Right up here, and I'm going to butcher this, but it says in my pidgin German, Thurer Gall. And according to Google, a Thurer, which is actually spelled slightly different in modern German, means cherished, dear, or beloved. The phrase Thurer Gall on a German headstone it commonly translates to beloved husband. So we've got some very unusual hands here. Now, hands are a common Victorian symbol, but they're almost always touching. At least if there's 2 of them, they're almost always touching. This is they're for husband and wife. They're clasped for holding matrimony. Sometimes they're praying to God, and sometimes there's one hand, and that is the hand of the G-man himself. Now, the Victorians were pretty serious about you can't, no false depictions of God and all that. But the Bible's full of references to the hand of God, so they figured his hand was fair game. And so we see the hand pointing up, meaning the dead person's going to heaven, and we see the hand pointing down, meaning what?
No.
They're going to hell?
Naughty potty.
No. It's the hand of God reaching down to pluck them up to heaven.
Okay.
And the tell is that the wrist, you'll see clouds at the wrist when it's the hand of God. He's reaching down from heaven. So this is neither one. This is an unusual 2 touching hands. Maybe it's just proper German something. I don't know. Some of the other inscriptions on here, we have IHS, right up there at the top, in the middle of the cross, IHS medallion. It's a Christian symbol. You see it a lot in cemeteries. It can be like just letters IHS or like this in a monogram. There are different interpretations of the meaning, but they all agree that it essentially stands for the name of Jesus Christ. The most common translation is that it stands for the first three letters of Jesus' name in Greek, iota, eta, sigma, and when capitalized, the word eta appears as H. Can also stand for the Latin phrase Aetas Hominum Salvator, or Jesus, Savior of Mankind. And there's another, even harder to pronounce, 8th century Latin phrase which translates to Jesus Christ as the King of Kings. All right, well, here's a big long one right here. And I'm not going to try to pronounce that. But it translates in German to "Here I lie and wait for you." Very traditional German epitaph used to express that the deceased is waiting to be reunited with their loved one in the afterlife. And of course, this is a very common Victorian theme, that the dead are actually walking around all around us. We just can't see them. There was a whole spiritualist movement based around this belief. There was books. There was all sorts of stuff. Where it most commonly shows itself is in the common headstone symbol of the gates ajar. Very common. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of headstones from this period have gates slightly open on them, and that's supposed to be the passageway between death and life. Jacob actually outlives Maria by 22 years. Wow. So he never remarries. He's sharing the plot with a couple, or 6 unmarried sons, and Jacob's mother, Mary, I think is back there. Interestingly, John, Gabriel, and William were all struck down in their late 30s or between their late 30s and early 50s by pneumonia. So, they're all, we'll talk about this later, but they're all marginally involved in mining. But this is not hard rock mining. They're scooping stuff out of the streams. So it's unusual that they would be so susceptible to pneumonia. The eldest daughter, Johanna, or Hannah, lived a long life, but also died of pneumonia. She married a nice German boy, Louis Klump, in 1885. That's a theme with these guys. They all marry nice German neighbor, boys or girls. The Klump family actually, they're obviously an extension of the Zentgrafs, and they held the Zentgraf property in the family until 1941, when it was sold to the Gherkin family. The Gherkins are good folk. I've gotten to meet them a few times, and what's amazing about the Gherkins is, it's a modern family that owned it for a bunch of years and didn't screw it up. You'll see this house, it's original condition. They did not do any significant major changes to it to make it more livable for a modern family, and that enabled Bob in the car there to get it declared a landmark, because it hadn't been so substantially altered like so many of the structures from that era were. And Beth, that I met, Gherkin, she talked about growing up in there. It's like, oh, this is a miserable place to grow up. Hot in the summer, cold in the winter, not enough electricity. Originally, well, we'll talk more about the house when we're over there, but originally there wasn't even a kitchen in the house. When Jacob, outhouse and kitchen across the road. But the kitchen separate from the house was common in this era because of fire. When Maria dies here at 1889, her younger daughter, Mary, at 16, becomes the lady of the house with all these bachelor guys. I can only imagine what life was like for poor old Mary. She took the first chance she could to get out of that. 10 years later, she marries, what? A neighboring German boy. And just like her mother had done, and Mary and Gus Wolf go on to live long lives, but they get off to a very rough start. The rough start is the result of a lingering family feud between the families, neither of which approved of the wedding, for reasons which apparently are lost to history. At least I can't figure it out. But the resulting fatal feud will be discussed at the house where it happened, and basically it lands at one of the guys in the back row here where he is today. The eldest son, George, was also the most accomplished. He was a postmaster. Then he owned a saloon, and hold that thought, he had a saloon, and he even ran for sheriff once in 1894, didn't win. Late in life, he became a guard at the governor's mansion, and he married Anna Myers, another nice German girl, in 1885, in what must have been a double wedding with Sister Hannah and Louis Klump. Yes, more German neighbor boys. So they had a double wedding. Anna's parents operated the Myers Hotel in Shingle Springs. They are buried in the tiny Myers-Zentgraf Cemetery, which is actually visible from the road west of Shingle Springs Boulevard in what was once Buckeye Flat. And that's where I first met George and Anna's great-grandsons, Tom and Jim Stewart, and hopefully at least Tom will be at the house today. He's a character. I was a reporter, and I was literally just driving by and saw these two guys battling a lawnmower and some waist-high weeds in this tiny little cemetery, and just had to go check it out. And the result has been a multi-decade friendship. Love Tom. And he loves the Zentgraf family and history. So the Zentgrafs weren't the only ones here. We talked about areas, and the nice article that Linda read kept calling this Jayhawk. This is not Jayhawk. This is Sweetwater. Everybody knows this is Sweetwater. There's a bunch of other industrious pioneer Germans here. Most came for the gold, and it was here, and they scooped it out of the streams in the early going, of course. But then they ended up being ranchers, farmers, maybe a little bit of timber, and in a few cases, vintners. One such family is the Friedmans, which occupy the plot next door here. And we'll talk about them for just a moment. You can probably hear me from there. You don't have to move. Not much to see. They're in a big concrete slab. Michelle and I redid the signs here. They were about gone, and Tom was going to re-stencil them and cut out the stencils, and then waited 20 years and gave them to me. So Michelle and I wrapped this up a couple of years ago. John Freeman supposedly shot a deer on a nobleman's property in his homeland of Baden-Baden, Germany, around 1840, and had to flee the country. One story has him also shooting the game warden. He ends up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, meets Wilhelmina, also a native of Baden-Baden. They marry in 1846. He leaves for the gold fields in 50 and does pretty well. Bounces back and forth for several years before purchasing land on Deer Valley Road and bringing his extended family out to become miners and ranchers, like so many other Germans. John's sister, Fridolina, marries John Meter of Meter Road. See, these names are starting to get, you're starting to hear the same names over and over again. The family operated the store at Pincham. Did anybody come the long way here and drive through Pincham? Okay, so that was the store. Alice Friedman is a tragic story. She was John and Wilhelmina's daughter. Alice married Bernard Klopfer, yet another nice German boy, in 1890. Their ranch is off Luneman Road. The couple had 2 children, and she began exhibiting strange behaviors. Mental health problems. She's in and out of private asylums and released the final time in 1899, but her symptoms worsen at home. She becomes violently insane and has to be institutionalized the final time in May. She lives only another 2 months and dies in the institution at age 36, leaving a grieving husband, and 4- and 6-year-old children. Bernard lived another 45 years and never remarried. And there's Wilhelmina, there's John, there's Paul. I don't know where Alice is, sorry. So, we also have back behind here the Fishers, which were also early vintners. They also operated the Bonisset mine, which was just north of Jayhawk Cemetery. and they're throughout. They're part of the. Did you guys see the handout that had what we call the spaghetti bowl? All the connections of the families in rescue. We'll circulate that again. But the Fishers are in they're a meatball in the mix, and they're both there and the McDonald plot over there are in really rough shape. It's sad. The families must have forgotten it or something because they're just busted up pieces of concrete left at this point. It's very sad. And speaking of very sad, in 1882, the San Francisco Archbishop bought a 75-foot by 520 feet long parcel, which supposedly ran from here all the way to Green Valley Road, from a rancher and innkeeper, Fred Engresser, who operated the Green Valley House just west of here. James Skinner also had a store nearby at the time. The Catholics built a small church here right behind me where that AT&T substation is. It was the first church in the immediate area. Much of the property here was dedicated to the burial of Catholic parishioners. The church survived until some point in the 1890s. According to the Churches of El Dorado County, which is our kind of primary source on churches, the building was eventually used, quote, for purposes its founder could hardly have sanctioned, close quote. Remember that saloon that George Zentgraf ran? When the church closed, George bought the building. He either moved it or just recycled the material to build a saloon and a store on the northwest corner of what is now Bass Lake and Green Valley Roads. I think the Rescue School District is there. One local archaeologist, that's my friend Melinda, believes that there might have been burials beneath the church altar over there under the AT&T substation. So what happened? How come there's an AT&T substation there? How come there's houses between here and Green Valley Road? Well, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. Let's finish off the saloon. The saloon and store over there made out of the church did well for several years and changed hands a couple times. And old-timers reported that the final owner added a number of, quote, professional women as an additional unsanctioned attraction. The place eventually burned down. Sorry, Catholics. The cemetery lived on for several decades, however. The last known burial was Paul Friedman in 1960. He's behind me here. The Catholic diocese forgot about it long before then. Catholic cemeteries in Coloma and Grizzly Flat were similarly forgotten. The cemetery was apparently also overlooked by the county, which approved the Lewis Holmes Emerald Meadows subdivision, portions of which are on the old cemetery. Tourmaline Way, which is right behind me, bisects the property, which supposedly extended to Green Valley. Adding insult to injury, in 1989, the county approved a Pac Bell relay station on the site of the old church. We have no way of knowing if or how many graves were covered up by the road, houses, and relay station, because all records of this cemetery are lost. The situation here with this cemetery sat for all those years, and then one of my predecessors, anybody here remember Sue Silver? Very active, very looking for a fight, basically. Active in defense of cemeteries and willing to take on anyone and anything. Good researcher, great writer. But she made a lot of enemies in her era. So she was outraged when she discovered about this, and she dutifully notified the archdiocese, which promptly sued the county. The church won, but the damage was done. They couldn't undo it. The settlement left the property in the church's name, but made the county responsible for maintenance. So all the church asked for was that you please cut the grass once or twice a year. Anybody got a guess whether they cut the grass once or twice a year? Never. The grass that Bob is parked on over there, I cut last week. Cemeteries are last on the county's facilities list, and St. Michael's is last on the cemetery list. So that's where we're at, folks. The developer did have to put up the steel fence that you see, which is kept locked. Pac Bell made cosmetic changes to that relay station to make it sort of church-like. So that was the concession, and now those some of the friends of that same activist think that the cemetery actually extended over to that side of the road. And if you look just over by the fence there, 50 feet behind the white SUV, you'll see some very suspicious-looking concrete that looks for all the world like grave copings. There's been all sorts of projects proposed and approved and then died across here. It's probably going to end up being apartments and or low-income housing, and all of which are needed and none of which would bode well for this cemetery.